Gonna throw in something about Leagues Cup.
I don't know anything about Leagues Cup.
Well, wait till you hear this.
Yeah. Woo. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by you, our wonderful listeners, those of you that choose to support us on the Patreon, patreon.com/third degree. If you like what we do on the web or the podcast or our reporting on social media on all the great soccer and DFW, why not join us on our Patreon? Third Degree, the podcast. Here we go.
Well, hello there, DFW soccer curious fan you. Welcome to another episode. We haven't done this in a while. Episode number 322. We're up to 322 of Third Degree, the podcast. Now, I have some sad news. Dan Crooke is not here because he died. Oh, wait, no, not he died. I'm reading this wrong. His computer died, and he's having to... Wow, okay, well, this is a little different. I thought this was going to be like the saddest episode ever. Dan Crooke is very much alive. His computer is dead, and he's got a BIOS problem. Now, that sounds like he should still call a doctor about, but that Dan Crooke will not be with us during this episode. I also have a suspicion that he just chose not to be part of this because of the topic du jour. That said, hold on. Let me introduce you first, sir. That's the voice of your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor-founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself. And he's here and very much alive. And he's back in town. Buzz Carrick, come in, Buzz.
Yeah, I believe Only Dan's is going so well that he's upgrading his equipment for the stream. So that's
10 gigabit pass through.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Full live, doing a sweet.
Do live streaming and
yeah.
Funky lighting and all that stuff. All right. Well, very good. So it's just you and me today, Buzz. Boy, the two original. This is my thing I've been thinking about since Friday night, which is it's funny to me how fickle we are as fans, and I'm including myself in this, and I'm going to include you.
Okay. And
how quickly things change, because it was just less than a week prior to Friday night. We were all like, you know what? Here it is. This is the moment. Things are going to change. They're going to make a real run from the playoffs. And we were feeling really good. And we're all like Sam Sarvered up. Our pants are all Sam Sarver crazy. And then Friday night at home against NYCFC, a legitimate MLS team, not St. Louis. Okay. And the team absolutely throws out one of the most bizarre performances I can recall in some time, as Dallas loses again at home, despite 4 or 5 lead changes, 4-3 to the Pigeons. And the season is done and dusted, isn't it, Buzz?
Well, it's probably close. And believe me, you're not the only one that was bizarrely felt mystified by that. Eric Quill in the post-game press conference was the word I would use was disgusted. He was absolutely disgusted by the mental breakdowns and the letdowns, and especially given how good it was the week before. He literally said that. He said, we were really so good. We thought we'd figure some things out. We were real excited. And then we do that. And it's just, as he said in that press conference, it was about mental concentration and group togetherness defensively. They know what they need to do, and they're just not delivering. They're just not producing. And at the end of the day, that's the difference between good teams and bad teams. Good teams can produce and deliver and come through in moments, and bad teams don't. So,
all right. So I want to talk about this because I did not watch the press conference, but I read it in the press release that they sent out afterwards. So I'm reading the press conference notes, and this is the quote. These are parts of the quotes that I want to ask you about. First off is, and how you're switched off in the first minute of a second half on the set play is beyond me. So I have to look at it very hard, but to me, every goal was a mental switch off. And then later in the same kind of thing he was going on. He said, we had 4 mental lapses tonight. For me, tonight was disappointing, especially how we played last week and how collective we were on both sides of the ball. I didn't see this coming. I'm really, really surprised. This is what tonight turned into. And I read these things and I think to myself, Mr. Quill, you're the head coach, manager man of this group of team. Isn't this kind of your responsibility, sir, to make sure they're switched on at the beginning of the second half and continue on with the momentum from I mean, this is kind of your thing, sir. Am I wrong about that?
A little bit. Yeah.
I'm wrong?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Not all, but a little bit. It's true that coming out of the locker room, you would think like the coach would be responsible for some level of that. And that's true tactically. It's true system wise, but we've talked many times. I've talked many times that the soccer is the game where the coach has the least amount of influence on the game itself. Once the game starts, for a long time, there weren't coaches, there's a reason why the coach is called the gaffer. Captains on the field are really important. Leadership in the players is really important. Mindset in the players is really important. There's a reason why lots of goals happen late and happen late in the game. And it has to do with being tired, and then your brain gets tired. So yeah, sure. Being switched on, like in terms of a rah speech at halftime, is the coach's thing. And obviously he felt that he had done that, to whatever extent was necessary, because he could not get his brain around, it seemed to me, like how in the world you switch off like that. And I use the term disgusted, not lightly, like the tone of voice is missing from those quotes, because it wasn't just like, oh, we made a mistake. He's like, how do you make a mistake like that? He's just it seems to me like I know him enough that I can tell he's at his wit's end. Like he's trying to get these guys to focus and stay, dialed in, and it's not happening. So like, sure, maybe in the big scheme of things, there's some coaching culpability there. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, players play the game. And this is the thing I've always said, is it's always the players, man. You look at any coach that has come in and taken a bad team and turned it into a good team. They change the players. If you're at a big, huge European club, you can spend lots of money. You can go buy Isak for $200 million, and make your team a lot better. But coaches in MLS can't do that. In fact, I'll go one further. Like, so there's a reporter, I won't say his name because I didn't ask him if I could say his name, but he actually asked the really ballsy question of, does your roster fit the way you want to play? Like a big picture roster kind of question. And I call it ballsy because he asked in the post-game press conference. Post-game press conferences are about what just happened. So to sort of ask Quill like this big picture roster build question was kind of like, and Quill just basically spun it and ignored it and said that, like, you can read between the lines. He said something like, I'm just trying to figure out how to win with what I have, and in a way saying like, yeah, this is the cards I have. These are the players I have. I'm doing the very best I can with these guys. We're playing the way we are because it's the best way for us to get results with who we have. So you can see his level of, watching it and reading it are very different. His level of frustration, his level of, I can't believe this continues to happen to us over and over and over again, is like, he's just like, this is just ridiculous. And there's a certain point at which he laments quite strongly lack of leadership on the field, in the answer to the question about, do you have enough to play the way you want to play? He didn't answer that, but he talked about leadership and talking about not having guys in the moment stepping up and talking to each other and working together, and how in the world you walk out of the locker room and fall apart in the first minute of the second half is a part of that. So, whether you think that he's the problem or whether you think something else is the problem depends a lot on what you think of him as a coach, well, and at the end of the day, that's what's going to come down to with the ownership too, is like, because they're at a point they got to make a decision, I think.
Well, I think, and we've talked about this, and this was part of the concern going into the season, which is, having an oddly constructed roster into itself is a problem. Having a brand new MLS rookie head coach unto itself is a problem. And when you put those two things together, it's a bad recipe for a season.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that, when Eric Quill says, you say about, you're talking about how players play the game. There is a part of me that, we're 3/4 of the way into the season and we're seeing the same mistakes over and over. And it makes me wonder, is Eric Quill not yet mature enough of a manager to know the tricks of getting guys to break those bad habits? Is a Bruce Arena type or somebody else who's more experienced have a know-how, a knowledge set of how to get their guys not to do those things anymore once they do it? Is it a fear factor? The other part of it is how much of this is a roster made up of guys that don't have a lot of threat to lose their jobs. There's not a lot of pressure to perform because they're not going to lose their jobs because the roster is so shallow, especially at center back. I mean, it's funny. We talk about who's the leader on this team, and visually what I see is the one guy that's constantly talking and trying to help and direct is also the guy that probably is the most hampered in Ibeagha. Like, Ibeagha works really hard to communicate with the rest of his teammates, but he's also the guy that gets caught in bad moments, and he's a little slow to react, and he's a little older, and maybe this is a little above him. You know what I'm saying? That to me is part of the problem. Is that is all of that stuff mixed in? Is this godforsaken season? Is that bad. Now, the other thing I was going to ask you about, because in going to the game against whoever they played on Burn Night, I forgot, last Saturday night, St. Louis, and then watching this game on Friday, we talked about this last week, which is this very apparent in this new formation with 3 in the back or 5 in the back is Quill's. Same thing. Quill's setup puts this team regularly in a situation where they're really counting on Kayik and Ramiro to do an assload of work as the only 2 guys in midfield. And more times than not, the wingers are either all the way back or all the way forward. And man, I thought New York really took a ton of advantage of that. And I do truly believe at the core of this team's problems, as many things as they got going on at center back and some things at wing, the core of the problem with this team is that Kayik is too young and Ramiro's just not good enough.
Yeah, it's possible Ramiro might have been good enough, a few years ago, but he's too limited in his mobility.
Today's
you're right. They are asking a lot of those 2 guys. Kayik has the range to cover up a lot, but Ramiro basically stays at home. Part of the problem is that the 2 wingbacks, and the reason it's called a 3-4-3, this is the wingbacks are supposed to be contributing in the wide midfield, right? But Torquata's 17, and still probably figuring out how to play wingback. They didn't play a lot of wingback in the academy. I can assure you that. And Shaq Moore on the other side doesn't really play defense. He just kind of goes forward, and that's about it. So, if you look at any sort of build out charts, the FC Dallas, this current version of it, always builds left. They don't build right. For whatever reason, the Shaq Moore side is not capable of build. So you're playing lopsided that way in terms of possession. You're right. The 2 guys on the wings are getting way up wide, which is actually okay as long as you're recovering and getting back. And one of the reasons why you want rangy center backs and why you need good rangy center backs is because you have to be able to cover wide spaces. You can even look at any team that plays this way, and the 3 center backs don't stay in the middle. They shift, they cover, they go wide in possession. It's a complicated problem. You're right. Ibeagha is the most vocal leader they have back there, and yet is one of the weak links in center back. Iragide probably is trying to be, but I doubt that English is really high on his list of languages. I have no idea if he speaks English at all. But certainly he doesn't do a lot of as much talking as you might like him to. Other options they have out there are Farfan at center back, who's really an outside back. Norris, I guess, but who's young, who's going to listen to him. So you're right. The collective is not good enough. And I know for sure I've heard this from multiple people that are very connected and from inside the club that I think they really, really were counting on Paxton being able to play, because one of the things I've heard mentioned many times now to me is they really want a big time midfielder who could play in there with Kayik. I say playing there with Kayik, because the idea that like you would take a big time midfielder and then put him in with Ramiro, who's stagnant, wouldn't help you any. Like you need a guy who can cover the ground, like Kayik can. Like, and I think that they thought that was going to be Paxton. So, you know, they've got a couple big decisions to make this window. And we're going to talk about that later in the thing, but that's one of them. And the bottom line is that right now, while this 3-4-3 is better, until you upgrade some of the players, it almost doesn't matter what you do. You know, like you, at the end of the day, you can only coach up a particular group of players so much. You know, you can only get a certain amount of improvement out of a group. We know that like progression in soccer takes time. You know, we talk about guys hitting their peak and they plateau. Like, so like a tweak of the tactics or some good game planning or some good practice on particular skills, or maybe teaching a guy something he didn't know, like that's only worth a little bit. That's not worth a lot. So, you know, you can look at, like, if you want to talk about Bruce Arena, you can say, oh, look at what Bruce Arena did in San Jose. Well, you know, he also brought in like 10 players, right? So it wasn't just that like he went in there and coached guys up. So like, you know, sure, like a more veteran coach might be very different with his team. But again, what veteran coach would take this job? So like, you know, Quill is what it is. You're going to get, if they were to get rid of him, you just get another coach of a similar cut. You know, like there's no Bruce Arena walking in the door saving the day here in Dallas. And you know that as well as anybody.
Yeah. And the thing with with those two guys that is problem is that because of the way they're playing, Dallas, the two wingbacks are pushing way forward, mostly because they're bypassing the midfield and just playing very directly. And then Dallas is not good at winning that first ball. So now suddenly Dallas has lost the ball, and now they're back into defensive transition, and their two wide midfielders are 10 yards deep into the other half of the field, and they're having trouble to recover. Or alternatively, Ramiro or Kayik are responsible for playing the ball forward and end up losing the ball. And again, the two wide midfielders are deep into the other half of the field and have to hustle back, and Dallas is exposed. And I see that happen a lot with this group. And that's just the biggest tactical problem in my mind.
Specifically, the goal, the third goal, the one that happened just after halftime, the one that seems to be making people the most mad. Like that was that they had booted the ball up to try and do a press over there, but Kayik got too high, Ramiro got too high, and the dude just runs past Ramiro like the guy's got cement blocks on his feet. But it wasn't just that. Shaq Moore was really high. Lalo's Abubakar, of all people, is up there pressing somebody. It's like, dude, you're one of the three center backs. Where are you going? You know, like they totally overextended themselves into that press, you know, and I guarantee you there's no way that that's the way it was drawn up, to leave two guys back. One of them was Shaq Moore.
Sure.
And if you, and then watching a guy just run past Ramiro, like he wasn't even in there, you know, and it left, Iragide with a really tough assignment, and he mostly covers that guy up in terms of his play into the middle of the field. But the dude Ibiaga's tracking, Ibiaga just lets run away like 15 yards away from him.
Yeah, Ibiaga's Ibiaga tried to cut him off at the pass or something, and
it was so weird.
He let him go wide, so he started running more vertically or back towards Paz. And by the time he gets there, the guy has nothing but net to shoot at. And by the way, Paz's keeping on that particular one was pretty horrid.
The front post,
And the New York guys on their radio gave him all sorts of crap about
They
it.
did.
Because that was not good goalkeeping.
But that goal, like Ramiro's high, Kayik's high, Moore's high, Abubakar's high.
Yeah, that's
terrible. Four guys. Ibi doesn't track the runner. And then Laos can't get close to his guy. And Paz is off the post. So like 8 people made a mistake. So it's like, that's what Scott's talking about. It's like you come out of halftime and it's like everyone's asleep, you know? And I'm sure that he probably gave some kind of talk of like trying to get them all, hey, we're winning. We got this, you know? It's like, I mean, I'm not in there. It's impossible to know like what Quill's doing that maybe is bad. I mean, who's to know? Like, unless you can get in there and watch coaches do halftime, it's impossible to say. And none of us are going to be allowed that kind of access.
Well, I'm not trying to dump all of this on Quill.
Yeah.
And,
he's made mistakes for sure. That's not,
well, that's what I wanted to, and one of those things I have to ask, Buzz, is this very weird decision to put on Christian Kappas at halftime. Now, Torquato did not have a good first half, and they were talking about this on the broadcast, and it was very clear that New York's manager had taken the tactical decision to double up Wolf and Illich on poor
Josh, 17-year-old
who looks like a U15 or U13 out there, and double up on him, and he was getting torched left and right. But I thought sticking Christian Kappas out there for an entire 45 minutes on his debut was a very questionable decision and probably very unfair to Mr. Kappas.
It is. I think that just shows you how desperate Quill is to have guys that he can trust, because Kappas is his guy.
But why not put Farfan out there?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the current ongoing discussions with Tigres over a buy of Farfan may have influenced that. Also, Norris isn't on the bench. Uragide has to come out at some point. So you need Farfan to possibly be a center back.
What about Alvaro?
Well, what if you need two? I'm just saying that, like, there's an influence there that, like, if I bring Farfan on as the wing back, I get it. Like, there's more than just like, why not just stick Farfan on there? Now, I agree with you. He should have just stuck Farfan on there, but I think he's just really desperate to get Kappas integrated, and Kappas just looks like a guy who got off a plane, has no idea what the team's doing, and has no idea who anybody is, or where to stand or where to be. Like, and he's not a wing back. He's a central mid.
I feel terrible for Kappas and I also feel that you and I were done hard, because you specifically have sung that kid's praises. And there's a whole lot of people that saw him for the very first time Friday night and were like, this guy sucks.
Yeah, he won good.
And the acclimation to the heat that he hadn't experienced in a while, coming off a plane, not playing with the team, playing way out of position. Has Chris Kappas ever played wingback ever that you can recall?
He probably has been stuck out at like left back. I don't know about wing back.
So I thought Quill really did that guy disservice. And if I was Christian Kappas, I would have given Quill an earful. like you asked me, you came back to, this is what you were talking about? Because that was totally uncool.
Well, we've talked about the idea that, like, it's been 5 years since we've seen Kappas play, but like, I know what the kid's made of. So, like, worst case scenario, I think he's going to give you about what Show gave you. Mm-hmm. And I don't think so. Like, if all you did was dump an international for a domestic player, that's fine. He's a guy that will buy in on whatever Quill's selling. He'll be rowing in the right. Remember, we talked about this, right? I want guys that are going to go the way I want to go. When I say run, you're going to run, right? This is my dudes. He doesn't want guys that aren't going to be pulling in the direction he wants to pull. So I think Kappas is going to be one of those guys for him. Worst case, that's what he is a role player, good locker room guy coach can trust. If he actually recovers some of his game, because Quill is his guy and he actually is capable of a better game. Like, remember, I rated him better than I rated Paxton when he was 18.
Yeah.
So, like, but I also said that his career hasn't gone like I expected. So I'm hoping, like, it's a little bit of a reclamation project in between the age of, he's 25. So 25 to 27 under a coach that likes him. I'm hoping that we're going to see more than what we've seen in game one. So it is game one. We talk about guys needing 6 months.
Well, I'm not even sure you can count that as game one. I mean, I just, that was unfair to him. I will say I was a bit surprised, because I hadn't really paid too close of attention to Kappas's career. One, I didn't realize how many years had passed since he left the team. Two, I was a bit surprised when I looked at his stats that he was just, by and large, kind of a mid-tier Scandinavian League midfielder. He wasn't outstanding or terrible in any way. So I'm curious as to what that translates to in terms of MLS. And is he just going to be another, who's the Canadian midfielder that we got for a couple years? That we didn't.
I know who you mean, but he's the name.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how memorable he was. I can't remember his name, but the one that we always were like, did that guy actually do anything in the game? Is he going to be like that? Is he going to be like Show? Is he going to be more like Alarmendi? Like, that's where I think the the trajectory of Christian Kappas is one to keep an eye on.
Liam Frazier.
Thank you.
He ain't going to be Yarmindy. I can promise you that. Yarmindy is probably the best pure soccer player we've ever seen.
Is he going to be Brandon Cervania?
Yeah, I think he could be that.
Is he going to be Sebastian Lletget?
Well, that's a completely different kind of player, but he could be Show, I think, quite easily. Look, we'll see. But like, I will point out that like after they put him in at wing back, New York gave up on that side. Like Kappas didn't do anything. He hardly had any of the ball. He mostly just stayed back and stayed in position. But like they stopped making hay down that way.
Yeah,
that goal,
I agree. Yeah,
their fourth goal came through the middle into the other half of the field.
Yeah.
So like that's not So Kappas didn't paint himself in glory and get like 3 assists and 5 goals. But at the same time, like he stopped the bleeding that was happening over there and managed to get through the game without getting a yellow card.
But he also didn't help at all going forward. Like he was completely a ghost getting past midfield.
But for all we know, the job was go in there and stop that side from getting wrecked. I mean, that's possible. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And notice they immediately tried that press play with him up with him on that side. Mm-hmm. Now he didn't get exposed. It was the middle that got exposed on that play, not Kappas. So but I agree that like that's not the start that we as people that were singing his praises would have wanted to see. I'm sure he's not excited about it either, but Quill might be like, "Hey, good job, you shut down what I asked you to shut down." Like some of that stuff is impossible to know. You're not going to get a whole 30-minute like breakdown from Quill about exactly the tactics moves they were making in various situations. It's just.
Well, what makes the game so unusual is that Dallas went into halftime with a lead. They were up 3-1, or was it 3-2? 3-2. It was a crazy first half, 5 goals. And we always talk about, hey, whoever scores in the minutes before the end of the first half, that is a huge advantage. That's always the worst time to give up a goal. And then the other worst time to give up a goal is in the opening minutes of the second half.
Yeah. That was one of Quill's frustrations. He said we should be talking about Logan Farrington having 2 goals. We should talk about what a great game that kid had.
He did.
Instead, when we were talking about how he collapsed again, it's like.
Well, I do want to take a minute because the Petar Musa goal, the pass to him was fantastic, but the 3 touches to score that goal are as nice as you will see in any league in the world. I mean, that was outstanding. And Musa is legitimately a reason to go see this team play. He's that good. Everything else may not be very good, but Petar Musa is legitimately good. And if he was playing for a real contender in this league, God only knows how many goals he would score on another team.
I think you got to give Patterson some Delgado some love for this game too. I thought he played really well. He had the pass to Musa on that goal, and he was involved in several other really nice plays. So, like for a guy that's basically taking on the Lucho Acosta role, nice is improving. Mm-hmm. All you want to see out of a kid that age is don't make the same mistake over and over. When you make a mistake, learn from it and improve. And like the first game he played this high role, his set plays were really good. But I thought like, other than that, I thought he was not very good. And well, then he had a game off because of rotation. Now he's back in on this game. And I thought he had the set plays again were pretty good, but he also had really 2 or 3 nice splitting passes, not just this one.
Well, speaking of Delgado, he came off in the 61st minute for the return of one Lucho Acosta.
What a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad.
I don't know, man. He passed at 70%. He had no shots. He had 0 XG. He played 29 minutes. I'm trying to look at the rest of this. Oh, that was the thing. By the way, he came out there and almost instantly committed 2 of the cheapest, most lousy fouls. The one deep that gave New York a free kick. And then there was one not more. I was like, are you trying to get thrown off? Is he trying to get ejected?
I at this point, I don't know what he's doing. 75% passing, I can live with.
70, not 75, 70.
Yeah. Well, FBref has him at 63. So.
Oh, wow. I was reading MLS stats. Okay.
MLS stats suck. Don't look at them.
Oh, okay. Today I learned.
Yeah. Delgado was at 73% and Lucho was at 63%. 2 progressive passes from Lucho, one progressive carry. I mean, that's not. And the more important part, like you can quote stats all day, is just I tested that game. Dallas looked great until they took Delgado off and brought on Acosta, and they brought in Acosta, and the thing fell apart. It's like when Acosta comes into the game, everybody stops. Musa gets worse. Everybody else quits running, quits passing. It's like, I don't know whether they expect Lucho to do everything or they hate the guy, or, which one is it? I don't know. Cause like they act like they don't want to play with him. Now, I don't know whether it's intentional that they act like that, or whether it's just, the game just died. Like everything Dallas was doing just died the minute they brought Acosta in. It was just awful. And I give Quill credit for being the mature, and I will give Lucho credit because I'm not aware of how this relationship worked. But those two guys got to a point after all that shit that happened. They got to the point that, okay, Acosta, you can be on the bench and we'll see what happens. And Quill put him in. Okay, that was your chance, right? And it was so bad. It was awful. Like if I'm Quill, that's it, dude. I'm not playing him again. Because Quill's going to get fired. If you're going to go down because your record stinks, you might as well play the guys that act like they want to be there. And think about how many times Quill said in the last 2 weeks, look how good we looked when everybody on the field wanted to be there. And that was when Acosta wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if I'm Quill, I'm not playing that guy again. I don't, go down swinging if you're going to go down.
Yeah, it's and this is where I get super frustrated with the fact that this club is run by people who refuse to get out in front of this with the public. Like, where is Dan Hunt? Where's Andre Zanata in all of this, commenting about the state of the team, the situation going on, commenting about, the Lucho situation?
I can tell you where he was. He was at the North Texas game.
Who?
Celebrating Zanata.
Well, that was the next day.
He's down there on the field holding a trophy, acting like he won it all.
Yeah. All right.
I know what you're saying, but like, they're never going to get out there post-game press conference style. Not going to do that.
I don't even expect them to do that. I wish somebody in a controlled environment, because the answer I'm going to get back from the front office is off the record on background.
Yes.
Is what we'll get is, why would we do that? Because all we do is open ourselves to more questions and chirping at us, and nothing we can say is going to satisfy anybody. So now my answer is, well, then why don't you put it in the framework of something controlled, where you just issue a statement where you don't have to answer questions. Well, they won't even do that. And so I everybody's left to just speculate and bitch and moan. And I felt bad for Lucho. I felt bad for Nico. I felt bad for Lucene. Any of those guys, it's just this endless stream of just managers getting hung out to dry, while Dan and Zanata, I don't know what they're doing.
Historically, for the last, I don't know, I'm going to say since Zanata took over, since Clavillo passed, we get a press conference at the beginning of the year with Dan, Zanata, and the coach. Then if the coach gets fired, you get a, Dan Zanata press conference.
Not if, when.
Well, yeah, when they've gotten fired, and then like, if they get a new coach, then they'll be there, and then they'll be there at the end of the season. Those are the 4 events that will get you those 2 guys in front of a camera. Other than that, they're not getting in front of a camera. They'll do stuff. They'll host a media luncheon and talk to everybody sort of off the record. If they're out of training, and if you're up there, you can sometimes get them, but Zanata, but not like, he doesn't do like a media session. It's just like, if you happen to go over there, you can have a word with him or whatever. But I've never found him to be, in those times I've gotten those kinds of conversations, which is not very many. It's maybe 5 times. I don't know that he avoids me, but it's just not something that happens.
Yeah.
I have not found the situation where I've not caught him lying to me. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that like, he's not particularly forthcoming about things in a deep way. He'll give me some superficial things, but not. And I find like, if you read the other people that I've talked to, I think it's kind of the same way. He just plays his cards really close to the vest. in terms of it doesn't talk about any of that kind of stuff. Well, we really like blah blah. Okay.
Yeah, I understand all that. I think when the team gets into the state that it's in now, the fans and frankly the team itself and their manager deserve the front office to stand up in front of everybody and say, "Hey, here's our thoughts on what's going on, and this is kind of our plan to correct it." But
particularly because what we just talked about is the players really matter, and we know, everybody knows here that the coach is not picking the roster. The roster is made by this committee, right? And there's this group, and they're the ones that put the whole thing together. So when you get to a window, we ought to hear from them about the state of the team, what they think needs some help, where they're going to maybe go look. No, I'm not getting any of that stuff. You're lucky if you get a printed statement when they're released and they sign somebody.
Well, we're moving on. They have got the Timbers coming up next, and I don't know. How are we feeling about that?
Well, I think that the Timbers game is not till next week. We'll actually have a podcast before now and then, so I don't want to go too deep.
Oh, that's right. This is the one where they're
off week. So, but I think that rest means that, of course, that Osaze Urgide can play for sure and start again and probably go quite deep, maybe even the whole game. That's a big help. Norris got some time with North Texas, so now he's available if you like him at left center back, left wing back, left back, 6, any of those things. That's a possibility. Anderson Julio is off IR as of last game, but did not make the bench, which is not understandable. Which is understandable. It's not a shock. But with 2 weeks, maybe he's in contention to even start. Certainly he should be on the bench with a chance to come in and have a good impact. With the whole 2 weeks, maybe even he could be – maybe it's a little early to start. I don't know. I could be the way on that one. But they're going to have a tough decision on that because both Delgado and Farrington are playing really well. So that may let those guys keep those spots. Are you getting anybody back in the midfield other than maybe Norris? But I don't know that Norris would start over Ramiro. That feels like something I would do, not something a real coach would do. Look, the Tigres Farfan thing is that talks are real. Is he still on the team? Is it Torquato? Is it Norris? So there's, 2 weeks is a long time in the window, right? I mean, you never know. We could be talking about a new player by then. Will Dietzen have his visa? I'm going to bet no, because he's from Haiti.
Is that the holdup on him right now? Is his visa situation?
I have no idea. No one's going to tell us that. But, I would just assume the way visas are going these days. I mean, North Texas had some problems getting guys in. They had one guy, they just cut his contract and said, fine, we can't get it done. Texoma had 4 guys that were 2 months late because of visas. It's just not like it was, and particularly a place like Haiti, which has got political sensitivity about it. That's not necessarily the easiest visa in the world. There are only 10 games left in the season anyway. So as you pointed out before, maybe, you probably have to get near 40 points, which is 15 points out of 10 games to give yourselves a shot to get in. That's a lot to ask, given the way you're playing, right? I mean, I hate to say that the season's over. They're not going to say that, but I'm going to say it's pretty close. But you're at a point at which it's so is it time to play for next season? Should we just have Alvaro in the whole time? Should Norris play a boatload? Should Diego Garcia start getting games? Should Torquato start every game? You have to ask these questions when play Delgado a bunch. Stop playing guys that you don't want for the future. Because it's not likely you're going to grind out with these veteran guys who haven't been producing to this point. So you might as well sort of move ahead a little bit. Because I think you're right. Most people pointed out that loss at home to New York probably is going to, put a capper on your playoff chances, even if mathematically it hasn't. It probably has.
Well, and they've got 10 games left. Half of them are on the road. Half of them are at home.
Well, that used to matter, but with this team, it doesn't matter.
I know. Well, I if you just kind of work off their running pace for both home and away games, getting 15 points out of a possible 30 just seems like a huge hill to climb.
Well, Austin, you never know with Austin. LAFC is tough. Galaxy are terrible. St. Louis is pretty bad. You got Austin again. Colorado's good, though. Portland's pretty good. Thankfully, they have the Galaxy twice, and they have Austin twice, which are teams that are at or with you or near you or below you. Unfortunately, you have Vancouver, Portland twice, and LAFC again. So it's about 50-50 whether you feel like any of those games are winnable or not. In my book, home or away at this point doesn't matter with this team.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. But it's going to be tough, man, because you have to win 5, in my opinion, to give yourself much of a chance. For a team that's got this record to turn to all of a sudden be a 500 team is not, that's a long shot.
So, and not to be super downer about it, but with 10 games left, do you just sit Paxton for the rest of the season on what is now turning out to be the worst knee bruise in the history of mankind?
Yeah. Well,
or do you just call it?
I think you got to call it. When you play 55 minutes and then are out 2 months, it's certainly not $1 million. So they have the window goes to August 21st, and they have a couple of tough decisions they got to make. Well, one is they got linked with a guy today. Do you know this guy?
No, I don't know.
Nampalys Mendy. He's a French Senegalese holding mid. I mean, you're a big Euro guy. I don't know. He's a 33-year-old holding mid. To me, that's obviously, if that interest was real, that tells you what they recognize their real problem. But independent of that, number one, Paxton on $1 million has to be addressed at some point. You and I love Paxton. We've known him since he was 15. At least I have. Mm-hmm. I assume you have too. We want the best for that kid. But at $1 million, you need to resolve that. You need to get that off of your books. He's been so hurt now that no one else is going to give him any money at all. If you really want to give him a chance, put him on a really cheap deal, but you got to get out of that money. And you have to make a call on Lucho Acosta, because Lucho Acosta is $4 million. So if that guy's not the answer for you, you have to make a decision. They have one buyout left for this season. If you don't use it by August 21st, the end of the window, then you can't use it. And then you would go into the offseason potentially needing 2 buyouts as the season starts with Acosta and Paxton. And that would remove your ability to do anything else, to buy out any other contract that you might want to get out of. So I think that they need to pull the trigger on one of those 2 guys this window. Now, whether you want to pull the trigger on Acosta or not depends on whether you can admit that you made a mistake, it's not working, or if you so believe in Acosta that it doesn't work with Quill, that you're going to pull the trigger on the coach. Because I don't think you either back the coach and get rid of Acosta. Not that those guys are at fist blows in the locker room, but it clearly doesn't work on the field. Clearly, to me, it doesn't work on the field. So you might as well, you got to fix one or the other, or you're just going to have the exact same problem next year. So either the coach has to go or Acosta has to go. Do you agree?
Yes. And well, the problem is, as you commonly talk about, that means the front office has to admit they made a mistake, and they either made a mistake with Eric Quill or they made a mistake in Lucho Acosta.
It's okay to say hey, it didn't work.
Right.
We it's not like we all told you it wasn't going to work. We were all Lucho Acosta, why wouldn't you do that? It was an idea on paper that looked great, but it's not working. So if you want to win this league, if you want to win games, if you want to win championships, you have to be willing to analyze the decisions you make and realize that one of them didn't go right. They've made a bunch of great moves. Iragide is fantastic. Alvaro fell out of the sky and landed in their lap, and they got lucky. But man, good job spotting that and getting him actually signed. That's a good addition. I mean, Kayik, $4 million, you overpaid, but whatever. He's got some potential 2 or 3 years down the road. He could be great. Okay, Ramiro doesn't look good, right? Analyze your decisions. Realize it's not either get rid of the coach or get rid of Acosta, because you're wasting $4 million on. It's not all on your cap, but it's $4 million as a DP slot. It's a big cap hit, and you got the Paxton problem. So either Paxton or Acosta needs to be bought out this summer, this window. And you have just under 20 days.
Yeah, I would just think that at some point the front office would understand from their own success and failures that bringing in post 30-year-old midfielders is not a winning formula.
Yeah.
And if they do, if there turns out that there's actually something going on with this Mendy character, that just tells everybody, well, you effed up by hiring Ramiro, because they're essentially the same player. They're both defensive midfielders. They're both 33. They're from different leagues, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that you would replace a 30-something-year-old midfielder with another 30-something-year-old midfielder. Like, why would you do that?
For all I know, this is just some coach, some agent, saying
maybe.
Like they love to drop FC Dallas because no one in Europe has a clue what FC Dallas is doing.
Right.
So they love to use FC Dallas for that. But
would it surprise you if they?
No, not at all. Yeah. It's that signing would totally 100% be in line with the way they do business. 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he was really expensive, high contract, and now he's free and, free agent, and he's free. You can just sign him for whatever. So look we got the star player from.
Well, it's like the Dietzen signing. I mean, here's a guy who's playing second division, was it Belgian soccer? And he's from Haiti and but he's young, and I guess the idea is, well, we can play him and maybe turn him into something and sell him for a profit.
Yeah, I mean, at least in his case, he did go to high school in Atlanta and was a member of, I think it was Atlanta United's academy, so or something similar. So he at least is should have a comfort level in the United States, which some of these guys don't when they come in. But yeah, that when I saw this guy linked today, I was like, oh, that's exactly FC Dallas. Sometimes I just want to remind them, boys, it's hot here. It's like getting a mid 30-year-old guy and ask him to run around. I did an hour of yard work today and almost died. It's like, come on. It's like, let's get 20-year-old.
That's why I thought the Christian Kappa's appearance was so hilarious, because here's a guy that grew up in Texas, yet he has spent the last 5 years floating around in Scandinavia, and he came and melted on the spot. That pasty-skinned little SOB almost melted like an ice cream cone out there on Friday night.
Well, he's like me. He turns red when he was in the academy here. He was more red than he was white, but
it was a bad scene. And it's crushing. It's really sad because all the good Sam Sarver juju just went out the window. And in fact, I thought it was really interesting when Sam started warming up and it was very clear Sarver was coming on, you could suddenly hear the energy in the building change. But the team was performing so badly, it took all of about 5 minutes to completely evaporate any of the Sarver energy. And even Sarver kind of oh, screw, this is a big total waste of time. And he kind of let up too.
I love that Kayik, and Alvaro, all three get really excited when they make a good play. Even Alvaro on a good tackle will get up and be like, yeah, I made a good play. They're 12, I love that. It's hard not to like a guy that it seems to really actually enjoy what he's doing and not run around looking like a sourpuss, like he doesn't want to be there. I'm not gonna name any names on that part, but you know what I mean.
No, I totally. That's why it's why I got instantly enamored with the kid on Saturday night, was because his enthusiasm and his passion, and he was the one guy out there that really seemed to care about the club beyond the regular celebratory, hey, look what I did kind of thing. It was collectively trying to get the fans fired up, and really was infectious. And I thought it was really sad that it took all of that pretty much burned out in less than a week's time. So that's unfortunate.
Yep.
All right. So as we said, the crazy thing about Portland is, do you realize that we get Portland on the 9th? They will have played their Leagues Cup game 3 days prior to that.
Tough for them. Yeah.
So today they revealed and announced the structure for Leagues Cup, which, hand to God, I had totally forgot was about to happen. And probably part of that is because Dallas is one of the few teams not participating in the League Cup.
I'm not paying attention either. Yeah.
So I wasn't paying attention. And so the league announced the format for it, and it's crazy. They've essentially somehow figured out a way, Buzz, to construct this so that all the way through the quarterfinals, every game is a MLS team versus a Liga MX team.
That's good.
And it goes all the way until I think the semifinals, where eventually teams from the same league can face off against each other.
Yeah.
So that is kind of, I think that's a really interesting and cool idea. And if you go through the schedule, the first game is Columbus and Toluca. On the first day, Toluca and Columbus, Montreal and Leon, NYCFC and Puebla, Tigres and Houston, LACFC versus Mazatlan, and Pachuca versus San Diego. Cool lineup. Second day, Miami Atlas, Necaxa Atlanta, Pumas Orlando, Minnesota Querétaro, and America versus Salt Lake, and Portland versus San Luis.
That's a lot of fun.
That's a cool format. I dig that. Too bad Dallas is in there, because now Dallas is just kind of sitting there with their thumb up their butt for the month of August. They got 3 games, one of which is against Portland. The other one is against Austin, another team that's not in the tournament, on the 13th. And then they've got Colorado on the 20th. And I think is Colorado in the tournament? I think they are.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know. Maybe Colorado's the other team not in it. And then they've got Portland again on the 20th. That's not till the 27th. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong place in the calendar. They have Austin, who's not in it. Then they've got LAFC, who will have played a game. And then they got the Galaxy. So it seems weird that they're playing 3 teams that are playing in the tournament and really not doing much other than that. So,
well, they got the Open Cup instead, which I'm okay with. I prefer the Open Cup, but
no, they don't. They're out of the Open Cup.
Well, they got it instead.
Oh, I see.
They don't have it going forward instead. They got it at the beginning of the season instead.
There would be the problem of falling out of the Open Cup so early.
Yeah, but they got to participate in the Open Cup, and if I'm picking the Open Cup. Leagues Cup is I like that they've changed the format, so it's all USA versus Mexico. That's great. That, of course, means that some MLS teams are going to be out of it. So if there's now a incentive to be good enough to get into Leagues Cup, and if people want to get excited about that, great. If people get excited about these tournaments, that's fun. If it's boring and no one cares, that's not fun.
Yeah.
I don't like it at the loss of the more teams participating in the Open Cup. I mean, I think that I understand it, but I think that in soccer, I think you have a duty in a way to the history, and that MLS has a responsibility to the history of the Open Cup, that they should be playing in it and everyone should be playing in it. I think you have a responsibility. I know why they don't. It's money, but I don't think money should be the answer all the time, which is why I'm poor on a podcast and not rich and owning an MLS team.
All right, let's move on to other stuff. Texoma did lose in the USL Cup to Colorado
went on the road and got smoked by a USL Championship team. They're last in their group in that tournament. Now, granted, that tournament's hard for them because they're playing at a lower level team, but they've also chosen to rotate quite a bit. Like, they're not taking it too seriously. And a lot of the USLC sides are not taking it too seriously, which is a shame, but I understand it. Again, I understand why these things happen, but it's still a fun tournament, even though they're in last place. However, they go back to league play next. Texoma does, against Charlotte Independence, and Texoma is still 7th currently, I believe, in the playoff mix. So good for them. And their second half of their season has still been just absolutely bonkers good, minus this setback on the road, which was not so great.
Let's see, the U23s in the League of Clubs semifinals were up in Frisco this weekend. The U23s played against Napa Valley and lost 2-0.
Yeah, that's Hitch's team. They lost 2-0 to the FC Dallas did. FC Dallas. The weird thing about this league is that they did not do a good job recognizing when guys had to report back for their colleges. So FC Dallas, for example, was missing 8 starters. And they only had 3 starters left. And so they,
because all the 8 had to go back to school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure other teams got hit by it too. That game was fairly even. And until my man Diego Hernandez missed a PK, and then they got a counterattack back the other way and scored to make it 2-0. So a team called Met Oval won the whole thing, but on beat Hitch's team on Saturday. But it was still a great run by the FC Dallas U23s. They stomped a lot of people when they had all their good players, but then those guys all had to report back to college. So they'll have to work on the schedule for that league to get that right. Yeah.
Trinity has started camp. There's nothing new really, and Dan's not here to report on it. I'm sure he'll have more about that next week.
Yeah, I did a little roster breakdown to sort of show positions and give you a little bit of information on each player. It's on our website. Trinity doesn't put out a ton of information, but I try to get some from various places. They brought back about 2/3 of the roster, maybe more defense turned over than anything else. So their season's right around the corner. Their first game is August 23rd, I think, against Spokane. So, right around the corner.
I saw the new Brooklyn shirts they promoted the other day. I saw them. Yeah, those.
Any good?
Yeah, I mean they're kind of a variation of what they wore last year. They're black, but they're good looking.
On the kit front with Trinity, the thing that I'm interested in is that we know last year, because they signed with Nike so late, they just got generic men's training gear as their kits, like off the rack. Like, so this time they should, knock on wood, be getting like an actual, it may not be a bespoke kit, but it'll be a women's designed kit, I believe. Something that's made for them, even if it's not going to be bespoke. I don't know about that or not. Dan maybe could have told us, but it should be a step in the right direction. Hopefully they keep the mismatched sock thing, even though that was an accident of availability. It still now is the thing. So keep it. That's good.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
The other thing that I realized, this is the second week in a row where in the famous red crayon run sheet where Atletico Dallas is, in parentheses, it just says nothing. And it dawned on me that this is really the challenge they face, which is they've launched this brand, they've launched this identity, and now the struggle for them is keeping themselves relevant and people excited about it in mass for 2 years.
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of these from dust things with these local businesses and local, I don't know what you'd call them, influencers. Like they had the Rangers. I think he's a play-by-play guy for the Rangers. I don't listen to Rangers radio.
They did Josie Records the other day.
Yeah, there's been a couple of companies. It's all centric and focused, Dallas, Garland. So they're really doing a lot of community stuff. But you're right. Like news drops are not there, like the things that we're into, which is like obviously a coach or a player
signings,
that's going to take a year. So like, how do you stay in the news? Us being the news is a good question, because obviously like this stuff, this community stuff they're doing, while it's interesting, it's not something we're going to be talking about on the podcast beyond just that they're doing it. So,
well, it is that stuff effective at building relationships with the community? I guess.
I hope so. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously limited to how they distribute it through their own social media. It's not like it's going out through mass media outlets or anything. I just find that to be an interesting challenge. I don't know the answer to it, but that clearly is the thing for them. Is their runway is so long. How do you keep the pace up through the entire, canvassing of that runway until you launch the thing?
And as the opposite of Trinity, who had like a 2-month runway,
right,
and was clearly way too short. So like maybe they overreacted and went a little early. So we'll see.
Well, I find what's interesting about this question is then you've got the yet to be announced Fort Worth USL team, which may be trying to find that sweet spot between all the runway Dallas gave itself, the no runway Trinity gave itself, and maybe they're going to find the sweet spot of when they finally decide to announce.
Yeah, I tried real quickly to look and see if I could find anything on Farrington Field and that vote or that situation, and I didn't go deep, but I didn't see anything right off the top of the bat. So we'll hopefully we can find out some more in the next month or two. We'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of stadiums, the other observation I had has work on the Dallas on the Toyota Stadium project just stopped.
It looks to me like it has. I
went to the game Saturday night and I was shocked to see that the buildings on the east side to the left and the right of the main entranceway that are still there. Like I thought all that stuff would be gone by now. And there's still parts of the roof that that was shared between the buildings is now just kind of flopped over the end of one. And I'm curious as to what the progress of this is, because for a project that was supposed to have started in January, and I know got delayed for a whole bunch of reasons, doesn't feel like it's gotten very far in the time since they officially kicked this thing off. And maybe it's going to plan and going to schedule. I don't know. It just didn't look like there's much going on.
Yeah, I look at that live camera every once in a while, and it basically has looked the same to me for like a month now. So like I don't know what's happening in terms of underneath, maybe that there's some things happening, but like, like we're roughly a year away from the flip, right? It's mid-season next year that they're going to flip the fan sides, right? Isn't it?
Which would require not only them demoing everything they need to get done. Now they got to build an entire structure.
Yeah. The east side needs to be finished basically a year from now, like July of next year is when the flip happens, I think.
I don't think there's any way that happens.
I mean, what do I know? I look at that camera and I think there's no way, but maybe there's a bunch of stuff happening that we're not aware of. That's like somewhere else or something.
I just thought, because this was like the third game I had been to, but there's been so much time between games in my presence. I thought, this is going to be one of those things where I'm really going to notice a difference. And I walked in and I was like, this looks exactly like it looked the last time I was here.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something else going on, like you said, underneath or something else. Who knows? But
yeah,
we know those projects take a long time. And I think we also said at the very beginning, whatever they told you and showed you it would look like at the beginning of this process, just know it's not going to be that by the end of it.
Some parts of it will be the same, but a lot of it's going to be very different. Yeah.
Yes. And that's just how it goes with the Hunt family stadium projects. The original drawings never turned out the same. The Hall of Fame got big at it, and this will too. So
I'll go so far as to say I'll be, if the roof stays and they actually end up with the roof, that'll be a huge win. Because like that thing costs a lot of money for not a lot of like direct, like what was it somebody said to me one time about stadiums? It's like think about stadiums in terms of what actually delivers revenue. Mm-hmm. Like like a roof doesn't deliver revenue. Like a big TV screen delivers revenue because you can put ads on it. But the roof has one ad maybe, but it's the same ad that's on the side of the building. So like, it doesn't really, so things like when you think about what gets cut, you think about what gives revenue. And so to me, that's like the roof is like, I mean, please, I really want a roof, but what, I'm not in charge. So what can I do? Clearly.
All right. Well, by the way, I initially on Friday night was cursing out the MLS kit assigner, who I hate with a burning passion of 1,000 fires, because there's Dallas wearing their away kit.
I know.
While New York wears their away kit. I'm like, why isn't Dallas wearing their brand spanking new everybody loves Dallas Burn shirt? And I'm like, okay, it's because of and then I realized I'm cussing at the wrong person, because it's probably really due to Dallas's agreement on the sponsorship, but that shared jersey sponsorship between Southwest and Children's Medical, which is the same people. Just that stupid deal drives me nuts.
I think I've been told that they're only going to wear that burn kit 3 times this season. So you'll get to see it 2 more times, but I think it carries over. So I think you'll get it next year, but it's only going to be 3 times this season.
Brutal.
Bummer, because it's such a good kit, and the secondary kit is so bad, and the current home primary kit is not that great either. So,
well, the secondary kit is so bad it makes the previously really bad home kit tolerable. It's just the wrong
fair
color.
Fair.
Did you order your own burn shirt yet?
I did. I'd ordered it the day that they went on sale, but it's like everyone else. Mine is in the mail. It hasn't even shipped yet. So
yours, you ordered the authentic?
Oh no, I'm a replica guy.
All right.
I don't care. The authentic replica means very little to me. It's about the money.
And these I thought, because of the way the materials of the badging and everything and the authentics and stuff is cool. But I also want a number on mine, not name, but number. And I've been waiting to figure out the best path, so I haven't ordered one yet. So
yeah.
And then I find out there aren't really any to be had anyway, so I'm not really missing out on anything
Yeah,
in
like
terms
I
of
said,
authentics.
I just ordered mine. I haven't gotten it yet. So.
All right. Well, it feels like time to shut up shop, but I purposely left the most important part for the end of the podcast so that we could end on an upbeat note, as the most successful thing in the history of Hunt Brothers soccer in North Texas DFW area once again has won yet another trophy, as North Texas Soccer Club won 3-1 over Club Deportivo Tapatio.
Tapatio, like the hot sauce.
That's right, Tapatio.
Not the hot sauce.
As they did the inaugural Next Pro Invitational, which is the champion of MLS Next Pro versus the championship of League MX B side,
Yeah,
whatever.
not inaugural. Apparently there was one last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Ali Curtis, when Ali Curtis was doing the trophy, he's like, oh, last year we had so-and-so. And I was like, man, I totally missed last year that they did this.
And now I will say, it does feel like Dallas pulled a fast one, because they essentially sent half of their senior team roster down to play in the game, which seems like a cheap maneuver on their part.
Well, Tapatio is Chivas' reserve team. They had a 27-year-old guy too. So, like, I'm not saying that both teams did this, but FC Dallas sent down Alvaro,
the defender.
The defender who's played 7 games for them. Colodi has only played 2 games for them, and he went down.
The goalkeeper, right?
Yeah. So, but he's played 2 games. So that's fine. Sarver and Scott both went down. Now they've been North Texas players all year, so that's fine. We'll give them those. But Pedrinho, Siki, and Sebeling and Nolan Norris all made their North Texas debut this year. Now I'll get you the whole like Siki needs minutes. Well, okay, but Siki's 27, 28 or whatever. He doesn't need to be going down there. Pedrinho's down there because he's in the doghouse, and to his credit, he did what Pedrinho does, and he was amazing for 20 minutes and scored twice, and then he went on vacation for the next 80 minutes and did nothing. And it was great to see Nolan out there, and Nolan must have been on a minute restriction because he played 45 minutes and then they pulled him because he's just coming off an injury. So, but still, like, they loaded up North Texas with as many like first team players as they could afford to send down. So like, most of them sort of half of them had a North Texas connection, but you remember they did this last year with the MLS, with the championship, when they used that rule and they sat Farrington on the bench for 4 games and didn't put him into the game. But because he was on the roster for 4 games meant that they could use him in the playoffs. So they brought him down and they played him over Tarek. Tarek Scott was the leading scorer in the league going into the playoffs, and then they sent Farrington down and took all his minutes away from him, which is stupid because Tarek Scott's an up-and-coming player you should give him those minutes to. But they cared more about winning than they did about developing the players, which is why I say North Texas is upside down. Like, man, this team's really good at winning Division III reserve titles. Great. Good job, guys. But that's not what you're in the business of doing. You're in the business of winning MLS titles, are you not? I would have thought. So, you know what? It's cool. They won the title. A bunch of dudes played. They had fun. It was a good time. It was a good game. It got feisty. There's a guy named Aaron Essel, who they've signed as a 6. I don't really care much about him at the 6, but they put him at center back for the second half after Norris went out, and it looked much better. He knows what he's doing at center back. I liked it way better than I liked him as a 6. So, whatever.
What Weston Sebeling must be thinking with that assignment?
I mean, like, did you watch the game this weekend? Did you see his face when he was the last guy left over there not subbed in? He basically looked like he was at his own funeral. Like, this is not going well. I mean, clearly Quill is not on team in Sebeling. So, it happens. Guys like who they like. Kappas is right in, and Sebeling's never getting in. Send him down North Texas. CQ was fine. He did all right. They played a 3-4-3, played a double pivot, which is interesting because they haven't really been doing that. But obviously that shows that like Camille's, like, to me, that's a sign that Quills is committed to it because North Texas is now replicating it. That tells you how that works, right? So
crazy. Well, congratulations, Dan Hunt. You've won yet another 3rd division title.
Yeah, there's a fun picture I shared in the Discord of Matt Denny, who should be there, but Zanata, Sandro, who's the technical director under Zanata, and the chief scout all down there holding the trophy. Look what we won. It's like, come on, guys. I get it. You're
Crackers.
excited, celebrating, but it's D3, man. It's like, that's not the point. You remember that when this really bugged me out last year when they won the MLS Next Pro Championship. They had some quotes where they said, "This reinforces the FCD way. It proves our system works." Winning a reserve championship proves your system works. Winning an MLS championship proves your system works.
Yeah.
I just thought, no, it doesn't. It doesn't prove that. It proves that they loaded that team up last year with all the fringe first team guys that weren't playing that are now all banished to USL Championship and will never be back. They're never going to play for FC Dallas. And this is the same thing. Like, the guys that actually got them to this thing are gone, and they just threw out whoever they could piece together just to win a championship and feel good about themselves. Maybe that makes me an asshole, but like, I don't care about winning MLS Next Pro titles. I care about FC Dallas winning MLS Cup.
Yeah, that's all I care about too.
Right.
As a day one fan of this club, is I just want them to win. I want them to win MLS Cup, and after that, how they go about being a regular contender is completely up to them. But there are so many times I think that the entire point to this thing is so ass backwards, and it's quotes like that just tell you, man, maybe this is how they want to run this thing, and you just don't get it. So I feel bad because everything after Saturday night, after Burn Night, was in such good positive vibes, and it all just got blown away with just a really poor outing at home once again. So maybe something good will come out of it.
The kids in North Texas, they had a great time. They really enjoyed themselves. They were celebrating as hard as anybody ever celebrated. I think it's awesome that they won a title for themselves, but let's not confuse what it is as the reserve team winning a championship. That's great for those reserve team players, but let's not act like that's this crowning achievement that like the club as a larger organization should be excited at. Look how great our system is when none of those dudes are going to play for FC Dallas.
Well, I said I wanted to end the podcast on an upbeat note, but I am going to put ourselves to the sword here. So Dallas is 4 games in August. Home game against Portland, away game at Austin, home game against LAFC, and then an away game against the Galaxy. There are 12 points on the board, Buzz. How many points will FC Dallas get out of 12 points in the month of August of the year of our Lord 2025?
4.
Yeah, I think you're probably
I think they either win at Austin or at LA Galaxy, one of the two, and then they get another point. They're going to win one of those 2 games on the road and then get another point somewhere else. And they'll probably lose to LAFC in Portland here at home, or maybe get a tie against Portland. Perhaps that might be the one point.
Yeah. The only thing, the factor in there is if LAFC progresses far enough into the tournament, that game on the 23rd is bracketed by games on the 20th or the 26th.
So I don't think it matters.
You know,
LAFC is too good.
Yeah, probably right.
They'll have enough key guys available that it won't matter.
Did you see they picked up that midfielder that used to be at Montreal?
Perfect example. Yes, and this is a bigger topic of discussion because I believe
is this the conversation about ambition?
Yes or no? It's also a conversation of LAFC is owned by the same people that own that other team that he's being loaned from.
Oh yes.
So easy to get him under the cap when the loan is tiny or whatever or something. I mean, if you're a good team, game the system. Like Miami adding this bonkers level DP as a not DP, game the system. Like the German Mueller going to Vancouver. The contract that's apparently being put together is that he'll be a TAM player for the rest of this year and a DP next year. We'll figure the DP out next time. And meanwhile, what do you want me to say?
We got a cool third jersey.
We do have a really great third jersey, and I will give them all the credit in the world for that. But it goes back to things like, IRing, Velasco and figuring out how to solve the problem later, their mechanics and just, and signing USL Championship players are back or journeyman reserves and claiming that now all of a sudden at the age of 31, they're going to be a 3-year frontline starter for you and thinking that's a good idea. Like, just for every great decision they've made, every great signing they made, there's a complete debacle of a signing the other way. It's just they cannot get it all together. And we're talking in this podcast here about a 33-year-old journeyman 6 that nobody wants anymore. So now he's being linked to Dallas,
So much for ending the podcast. And
I got an upbeat to end it on, but this isn't that yet. At least they went and got Lucho Acosta, spent the money to get him. I'll give him that. It didn't work, but I'll give him that they spent the money to get him. You got to give him credit for that. They spent the $5 million.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, which is, but should they have had the foresight to understand that was a bad pairing to begin with?
They probably should have. If they had done their scouting and of Quill and Lucho, then maybe they should have foreseen it.
I mean, Lucho Acosta, it's not like he was an unknown entity. And I mean, everybody knows what you're getting when you're getting Lucho Acosta, both on and off the field. And in fact, as we talked about last week, Zanata made a big joke about how he's Brazilian and knows how to deal with these types of people. So it's like they knew what they were getting. So I that's where the failure was, is not recognizing that this was going to be a difficult pairing. But I also want to say, and I want to repeat, if they had ended up with a crummy season and we found out that they passed on the opportunity to sign Lucho Acosta, we'd be equally as sideways about that.
We can't be hypocritical about that. But in hindsight now you can say it's not working, know, and maybe like as the professionals who are in there every day scouting and watching tape, maybe you could have known that it wasn't going to work very well, as you say. Maybe it wasn't going to be a good fit. But I think it comes back to the idea of this idea that they're just getting the players and they want to be as flexible. They get this big old pile of flexible players and they just dump it on the ground and they go, now coach it up. Like that whole idea to me, I can't get past this idea that like there's no cohesive plan between the coach and the people getting the players, that it's just like, here's a bunch of players, now you coach them.
Figure it out.
Like, to me, that's backwards.
It is. And that's where I think it's the pairing of the way you do the roster and hiring an inexperienced manager that really bites them in the ass, because maybe a more experienced manager could do a better job of that task of trying to make something out of alphabet soup. I don't know, but that's the only thing I can figure out.
A lot of people don't know this story, but when Steve Morrow was the coach here and FC Dallas signed Danielson, Steve Morrow hated that idea. He did not want Danielson, wanted nothing to do with him, and fought to not have it happen. And only because he bitched about it and complained about it so much did they only did a 1-year deal with Danielson. And thank God, even though they fired Morrow really quickly, thank God for Morrow for doing that, because otherwise they'd have been stuck for 2-3 seasons with that guy on crazy money back then. So, sometimes you're right. A coach that's been around, like Morrow was a first-time head coach, but he had played in the Premier League for a million years, and so had a better, firmer grasp perhaps, and a sort of a greater belief in himself to stand up and be like, no, I don't want that guy. And even once he got him, was like, I'm not putting him in. He's terrible. Until they were, getting killed, and then he did or whatever. But you're right. Like maybe a different coach, but remember that Quill had only been here a very, very short period of time. He'd just been hired.
Oh yeah.
So like any other coach that had been hired there, I don't care how experienced they are, I might've been like, sure, give him to me, but I reserve the right, like at the midseason window, to be like, it's not working, get rid of his bum ass.
Well, I'm curious if somebody like with a more experience would know how to maybe make this group of these guys work, because they've been through that before or have been part of a club that have done that before. Quill's just so new at this, especially at this level, that, I mean, Quill's got to go into a room like this and he's got to establish authority and gravitas and respect. And that's hard to do when you've got an alphabet soup that you've also at the same time got to figure out how you're going to put all these weird fitting pieces to fit together. And if a Bruce Arena walks in the room, a lot of that is just immediately out the window. Oh, it's Bruce Arena. And Bruce says, all right, this is how we're doing it, XYZ, and moves from there. And that's why I think the pairing of those two things is such a problem for Dallas, and can probably always be, because this is just how Dan Hunt allows everybody to run his business for him. Unfortunately,
with Acosta, like the times it's fallen apart for him, it's because people didn't give him the players that he wanted around himself. Right. He wanted out of Cincinnati, because they sold the players that he liked, sold Vasquez. didn't give him who he wanted. Same thing with DC, if I remember correctly. Like he was mad that like they didn't keep this guy or didn't get that guy.
No, DC was because PSG wanted to buy him, and
You're
DC shut the door on that deal.
You're right. Well, it's like, but you remember, doesn't he have the quotes from Cincinnati about like Chris Albright wasn't,
it
was a liar or whatever. And I'm sure that it was all related to that kind of thing. So like, there's probably some cases like here where like, for example, this is not pointing a finger at anybody, but the picture that came out with him with Acosta and Pedrinho and that coach, where the headline says, "Oh, these are real 10s, and if you know, is like, well, that's like a sort of like a, this is who should be playing with them, And we even heard talk from Quill early on about he was trying to get Acosta and Pedrinho on the field at the same time, but has not been able to. So like it comes back to these same things. Like to me, Acosta thinks he knows how the team should be playing more than he thinks the coach knows what the team should be playing. And so that's the root of the problem. And I think that's why it's not ever going to be fixable, because you're right. Acosta thinks he's more qualified than the coach. Then I think, this is my read, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the behavior is that like, I know better than my coach of how this should be happening. That's how I see it.
Well, Eric Quill's not the one trying to pass out of a 3-man mark and turning the ball over and then standing there all the time. By the way, who is tinier, Lucho Acosta or Maxi Morales?
It's close. I don't know. Lucho's legit 5'3". I don't know.
That other dude may have been smaller than Lucho.
He might have been. He's tiny.
That guy's tiny too, and he's thinner.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He's a good player, though.
Yeah,
Very
for
good
sure.
player.
Yeah, you can play at that size if you've got really good core strength and balance. Can take hits, fight them off.
I like those I like those second shirts, those second kits for the Pigeons. That's a good look.
Yeah. They usually have good branding stuff.
It. Okay. And by the way, I officially want to put on the record, I am so pleased that the club finally bought into the Pigeons nickname. Did you see what they did with the float down the river
I heard about
the other day?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it. Yep.
Yeah, so they put a big raft in the Hudson River and floated, or was it the East River? I don't remember, one of the two rivers, and they floated this massive inflatable pigeon with an NYCFC jersey on it down the river, and it was pretty great. So I'm glad they finally came to their senses and just bought into the whole Pigeons thing.
Yeah, it's a good nickname.
It's a fantastic nickname. It's so good. It's really, really good. In fact, that's the other thing that happened this week that pleased me greatly, is we had another a brand new American soccer club do proper American soccer branding as it should be done, as Dallas Trinity did, which is city name, Americanized team club nickname, and then if you really have to do it, throw in your sports ID suffix of SC or FC at the end of it. So Denver Summit FC, I thought it was great. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a good name. Yeah, good brand. Yep, I agree.
Everybody else stick to that, please. All right, Buzz. Well, hopefully Dan's computer comes back to life for next week.
You want me to give you my positive finisher?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Justice Jones and Christian Guillen Lopez, who play for the FC Dallas U15s, have been named to the U15 national team for the CONCACAF Championship. Which is
that's fantastic.
So 2 young guys in that team from FC Dallas. So good luck to them.
Positions?
Justice Jones is a left back. Christian Guillen Lopez is a center back. And there probably will be 2 more kids in other teams. I have not seen the official announcements yet, but there's a kid from Mexico probably and a kid from Puerto Rico probably. And when they get announced, we'll give them a shout out too.
All right. Fantastic. See, everything's good now. I feel much better. Getting call-ups for the kids. Love it.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by you, our wonderful listeners. Those of you that choose to support us on the Patreon, patreon.com/third degree. If you like what we do on the web or the podcast or our reporting on social media on all the great soccer and DFW, why not join us on our Patreon? Third Degree, the podcast.
All right. Well, everybody pour one out for Dan's computer. And Buzz, thank you very much, my friend.
Oh, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Always, for sure. This is the best part of the week. And we thank you too, DFW Soccer Curious fan you. We will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
I kept waiting for Dan to do something. Oh yeah, he's on here.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.